I'm Adam Dietrich, and I'm the co-writer, co-director, co-producer of A Soldier's Way.
I'm Elliott Gilbert. I'm the co-writer, co-director, and co-producer of A Soldier's Way.
Well, I think that Albert Einstein's interpretation of time, that it's all at once, that it's not linear like we suggest now, but that all of time happens in one moment. That's what our film's exploring, is that there is no separation from the day you're on the battlefield, from the day your child is born, from the day you're married to the to the day you first arrive back home. That's all happening kind of simultaneous in a way, and it all lives here, if nothing else, in your mind. And for PTS, that's the battlefield, is your mind, and where you've collected all of these memories. So I think our film attempts to try to create a world that is at one time. Elliott and I balance out perfectly almost every day. I'm usually having a bad day if one of us is, I'm usually the bad guy. But he puts up with my crap. And the rare occasion where Elliott has something going on, I know to take a back seat, You don't get that overnight with anybody. Also, it's just more fun. Yeah. I mean, the first film that we co-directed, we always make stuff, but in the film world, we had gone through this, we had gone from theater, and when we came into film, I got known as an art director and a production designer, and Elliott kind of came into film through, university, and people got to know him in a certain way, but it wasn't as writer, director, producer. And so we kind of took this journey through the industry back to what we actually do, what we did in theater for a decade and blah, blah, blah. So I think the first time we co-directed was the first time I had a really good time in film in a long time. There's nothing to substitute that, you know what I mean? Fun translates into the work that you do. Every movie that I've ever made that succeeded in some way was fun, even if it was hard. But it wasn't ever a challenge in that kind of like emotional way, it was always fun, even if it was the hardest thing to ever make.
I guess that's kind of what they call a labor of love,
Yeah.
It just becomes something that you just love to do. You're playing, pretty much.
Yeah. We're tackling a subject that's talked about and not talked about enough. So it's talked about enough to where people know it and they kind of start to tune out, right? But it's not talked about enough because we haven't accepted mental illness as a reality, as a general population. And then there's a lot of movies about soldiers, but there's not a lot of movies about soldiers and their spouses or the entire community that goes to the battlefield. That was some of the challenges. I think also creating that all in one time in the edit and trying to make sure that this ethereal thing was communicated in a way that audiences could feel. I don't know, what do you...
Yeah, no, I agree. There was a moment when you're watching the film where you see he's like in a black room and he's developing photos and stuff. In that moment, we were all working together, and it was just so improv. Where they're holding mirrors and different things in front of the camera, and that was all in camera. It wasn't anything that we did in post to get that color and all the warpness that you saw. But we almost lost that location, because of some miscommunication, whatnot. But we were able to keep it, at my university. I'm not going to name the name, but it was a moment where that was some magic that came, but it was a difficult moment. Moments before that, we would have lost that location, and then that scene may have not ended up being the way it was.
They're all about psychological complexities, mental health, and existential crisis, which is all invisible. So we have to find ways to physicalize that as filmmakers who are exploring short films before we do any kind of narrative feature. It was really fun because the invisible is hard to translate. It's not as easy as guy took the money and now he's hiding the money before the cops get him and now there's a chase. You know what I mean? Yeah. Those are great.
Those are fun.
We love those.
Entertainment, yeah. It's for me, I think it's like you said, the challenge of making something, the ethereal, making that be something that people can kind of hone into and like, oh, I get it,
And we didn't want it to be a pace that let people decide to not be a participant. So we were very conscious in writing it and directing it and getting it through post to try to keep the energy up, to make it interesting, to create mystery, to create action. We were very intentional that we wanted it to feel in that way like a commercial film. And I don't think it's a commercial film, but in that way, that the pacing keeps you going.
To keep that engagement there, you know. Barr, you know, we see his point of view a lot, very important when we flash from him, he's in the room, and then he's back in his mind, he's there, and he's bloodied, he's talking to her in Afghanistan, you know, so we really wanted that to be important. And then the moment where you see her cradling him, you know, and it's like, now we're kind of looking in the God's eye viewpoint of, wow, this is, you know, this is something gentle, this is a human being, you know, and she's trying to give him love, you know, and we kind of have more empathy for him, I guess.
There's an interesting, I'll just piggyback that, is that, you know, in our last two films, we have a single character that we're focusing on the journey. In this movie, we made a conscious choice that Stephen Barr, who Tim Llewellyn plays, is, you know, just innately kind of the leading role, and yet we didn't want to give to that completely. We wanted to explore this give and take. In acting, there's this exercise that you do called mirroring, and you get with a scene partner and you mirror each other. And you try, one person leads and the other person leads, and then you try to get to a place where neither of you are leading, you're just naturally moving with each other. And so we wanted to have an ensemble piece that could naturally move from Stephen Barr to Villanueva to the wives back home to the child. So we're moving out in and out of people's POV, which is not, could be a death to a film, you know, and we were conscious of that fact. But we thought, you know what better time to explore this and to take chances than with a short film like this.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we were talking earlier, we're definitely developing the feature for this. There's a feature that we'd like to do based on our high school theater department. You know, we want to follow the high school students from their sophomore year to the senior year. It's kind of a coming of age film, so kind of like a feel-good film.
You know, I think all of the things that we do are drama or human-based. I don't want to say drama, but human-based. And then whatever drama, comedy, sci-fi, horror, those are just the frameworks, you know, but they're always personal stories. We've got those in the works. We've got a feature out right now that I produced and we worked on called The Vast of Night. So we've been busy with that. Andrew Patterson's first film, which we love. Go check it out, The Vast of Night. Yeah. And then we already have our first investor in for this feature. So hopefully, you know, sometime soon we'll be able to see kind of a more realized world of A Soldier's Way. You know, mental illness is real, just like cancer or air or outer space. You know, it's physical, it's tangible, it's real. Just because you don't see it, and just because we haven't developed the best scientific tools to measure it in a way that can quantify it, doesn't take away from its reality. I think the faster that we accept that, the faster that we can start research, put the right money into it, and impact our communities. And what better community to start with than our military, who sacrifice their lives, who are willing to sacrifice their lives to protect us and to help build this amazing nation and the dream of this nation. You can build much faster a great nation, a profitable nation, an expanding nation when you have all healthy people, heart, body, and soul. So that's what I hope.
Yeah, I'd say to the audience, man, just go sit down and, you know, look at someone else. You know, put yourself in their shoes. You know, try to see them beyond what you see on the exterior. Try to look deeper. You know, if you can extend yourself, your consciousness outside of yourself like that, then maybe you can start to notice those things and go, hey man, are you okay? You know, and you know, I feel you. You know, even though I haven't, me personally, I haven't been in war. My father was, my grandfather was, my uncle. You know, but we all can relate. You know, and I think a part of that illness is that and of any illness, of any trauma, is that you feel like you're alone and you can't like relate to other people, or people don't want to relate to you. But it's like, man, if you can get beyond the mask, then you can, like, we can heal a lot.
That's the cool thing too. To relate, you don't have to understand completely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the cool thing about emotions and relationships, is that, you know, to run a machine, you have to understand how the machine runs, right? There's training involved. But to relate to human beings, the only step you have to take is say, I'm willing to.